when you're based in Europe, but specifically in the UK, you've got this kind of almost like armchair psychology that's going on regarding what happens in the US. Like, I like to look at all the chaos that has been ensuing in the US and be like, how is this going to affect us? And my God, we have had a crazy couple of months in crypto, in tech, in stocks, global markets, right? And I thought I just wanted to start by like trying to get in your guys' understanding of where you think we are right now when it comes to the regulation, when it comes to the current market state, when it comes to the increase correlation between cryptocurrency performance and stock and wider market performance and everything like that.
I guess the way we think about this is more less about prices, but we more think about the growth of the industry and um, how the policies kind of enable that, or they kind of prevent bad behavior. If we look at, for example, the regulation that's currently in question about being overturned from the Biden administration about uh, mandatory use of qualified custodians, I think it's really like everybody's really on the same team. They're all trying to prevent bad actors, and they're trying to sort of trying to do the right thing and trying to encourage good behavior, making sure that people that are new in the industry that are coming in, they have the right rule set, the right playbook in place, and also the people that are currently in the industry, they have good, clear path towards how to navigate the new sort of technology, the new sort of changes that are coming in this industry. So I think really everyone's on the same team. It's I think there in this, when you add political sort of like stuff, it makes things look a bit like that, like someone's trying to do A while it's actually affecting the industry in Y way. But I think the way if we look at the way the Trump administration policies are around strategic crypto reserves, and like the way they've kind of I think generally it's kind of seen as the industry is not happy with the fact that there's no additional buying. It's just about holding the reserves. It's actually like extremely positive if you think about it. If you look at 10 years back, uh, like no one could have like really guessed it in a very clear way that US is going to end up with this kind of policy. But I think sometimes it's kind of quite easy to get into like a myopic view that okay, like this is gonna hurt us. Like, oh, the world's gonna be on fire. As custodians, we kind of take a long term approach, which is okay. This policy means potentially that it makes it easier for stablecoin issuers to be in US, like the Genius Act, Stable Act, and it will potentially impact Europe in this way because Europe is also trying to compete in this block. So as a kind of custodian, how do we make sure that we're kind of aligned with those requirements, and we're there for our clients who want to leverage some of these policies?
So does that mean that you're working ahead in terms of the regulation that you expect is going to start taking place in Europe and the UK, as I guess as a snowball effect from what's currently happening in the States? You're working like ahead of that, I'm guessing.
Yeah, exactly that. So we work quite closely with our clients and also the wider industry, and we take lessons, and we take a view that everyone's that's in this industry is trying to use crypto for like lots of different use cases, and the policy and
Hmm.
the regulation kind of tells us where the guardrails are, or where the cliff edge is, where like if you don't walk in the right way, you're gonna fall down. And we also look at how if actually what the upcoming impact of a policy that might get implemented today is, and we tend to work with that. We work quite closely with the European regulators. Yeah, we're regulated in France, so we work
Hmm.
quite closely with AMF to understand what is the outlook, sort of for the French ecosystem, but also
Right.
if a customer comes to us, we need to know where the guardrails are. We're not advisors, but we as a product, we as a company need to have a view.
For sure. Why France?
For lots of reasons. So we actually looked at a few jurisdictions 2 years ago. So company is 3 years old, and we started to look at jurisdictions in about 2022. And I think initially we started looking at Estonia, Lithuania, lots of different including Germany, and one of the things we found consistent was that there were really like three kinds of jurisdictions. One that was like, just come here, mate. Like, just come here, establish the company, grow your business. We'll support you. We're on your team, and that's great. Second was like more like, no, don't come here. We don't like we don't like crypto. This is like new kind of stuff. And then the third is more like, okay, we kind of have a perspective on this, and we think it's going to be X, Y, Z. If you like it, it's great. If you don't like it, we'll see you later. And we preferred the last approach because then there were effectively guardrails there for us to follow and like for us to like look at, rather than a jurisdiction that was super open and then which might shut at some point, or it might tighten rules at some point, and then we'll have to aggressively restructure or work through those sort of uh, changes. In 2022, France was really, I think I would say like the most forward looking, yet sort of like balanced uh, jurisdiction compared to at least UK, which is very like high level, like guideline based approach, where instead of giving you exactly what to do, ABC, they kind of say, okay, you need to think about XYZ, which is super high level. For France, it meant that if we were compliant in France, it would not be difficult for us to then be compliant in like anywhere else with more vague regulation or more tight regulations.
Yeah, I
I
think just
see. Okay.
the other thing to add to that, I think, is um, that so PSAN really set the way for Mika. We are regulated as a class in France under PSAN. And I think having those guidelines in place and the framework with which we operate in France, as Manthan said, has sort of set the pathway to work and operate across the rest of Europe, I think, which was really, really key for us, especially as a small team with a small compliance team and department at the beginning of our journey. How can we passport very easily across different jurisdictions within Europe? And PSAN and Mika has allowed us to do that.
That's cool. That's interesting. I always thought it's interesting when the decision making process that takes place behind deciding where a crypto company should incorporate, because it's something that probably very few other companies think about, right? Like there's think about any other industry, you don't have that thinking process in mind. What you think about is,
Mm.
okay, do I really want to dodge taxes? In that case, probably going to set up an offshore holding company or something. But you don't think about, oh, how is this industry going to be regulated 5 years from now, and am I going to be like booted out of the country because of that? Um, so it's always interesting. I know companies that have incorporated in Estonia for those very reasons. I know companies that are still operating in the UK, and I know that up until now, a lot of companies have run away from the US, right, because of the uncertainty and because of the crackdown and everything that went along with it. Where do you guys stand when it comes to US and US markets? Do you have a plan already in place? Are you formulating a plan to enter the market or anything like that?
I think from a strategy perspective, we're still sort of looking at what the demand is and what the like how the ecosystem shapes itself. We're more plugged into Europe at the moment in the sense that we work with companies that are using crypto for various things like being able to issue stable coins, being able to issue real estate. And I think from a US, the way we look at US is more that US is seen as its leader in the space, but the rules are still quite different. And like if you look at 3 years ago, the government position on crypto is very different to what it is now. Like the
Sure.
SEC lawsuits with like DeFi sort of protocols and large companies. When you're a startup, you like getting into a lawsuit with SEC is quite daunting prospect because it can really burn funds. And I think and that's just about arguing who's right or who's wrong, less about even winning, because you need to have the gasoline tank to even get to that point. And like, once you're in the bad list, like it's kind of, that's also bad for future prospects. So I think the way we kind of see that is, from our perspective, for like US as a kind of like jurisdiction, we're still looking at more clarity to be kind of had. We
For
are still,
sure.
I mean, we have a lot of prospects actually today who are based in US, but they're also operating in sort of Europe, and we happily work with them. And I think, but it's really about just like looking, like lots of positive things have come out in last year. It's just about watching it a bit more and kind of like seeing the direction it kind of goes, and seeing how that matures and kind of how that shapes.
Yeah, definitely. I also noticed that you guys have you've managed to secure investment through Ripple. So they're one of your partners, which is fantastic. Congratulations on that front. I wanted to ask if you have the same kind of or at least a similar approach to regulation, or if Ripple are sharing some of their learning and experiences um, through the battle that they have had, and if you're benefiting from that at all.
Yeah. So I think both Manthan and I came from Ripple. We spent over 5 years at the company building out a lot of their payments
Right.
stack. During the most of the time that I spent there, Ripple were not a regulated entity. They were really building and selling technology. I think as there's, over the last few years, as there's now more sort of clarity in the digital asset space, Ripple have gone after specific licenses, especially around like their payments flows, etc. Um, I left Ripple 3 years ago with Manthan to build Palisade. I think since the moment we stepped out of Ripple, for us it was always regulation. It was like very, very clear from day one that for crypto to succeed, regulation needs to come in. And so from day one, as I said, part of the strategy is always to go after the necessary licenses. Ripple has been a great partner for us. Not just in terms of the fundraise, etc., but also in terms of that ongoing learning and those shared experiences. And we work very, very closely together on stable coins, payments, wallet infrastructure, etc. And I think we'll continue to sort of share those learnings as we go forward.
Actually,
That's
just to
cool.
after that, one thing I would say is, Tom and I were actually working at Ripple when they received the notice from SEC, and I think that was on a Christmas Eve or something
What
like
was
that.
that? Was that when you decided to just jump ship? It's like, nah, I don't want to deal with this, guys. Goodbye.
Yes.
It's been a fun
Here's my
ride.
notice. You have SEC notice. Here's my notice. No, no.
Exactly. Yeah, you
No. So
can reverse on that.
no, but I think, yeah, I think like there are like learnings from there, like the way they approached it and the way they kind of sort of looked at that lawsuit and kind of put the facts together. And I mean, like there's a lot on YouTube, obviously, because there were like lots of legal analyses on how it could go one way or the other. But I think, yeah, there's been learnings primarily around just how important regulation is, and how important regulatory clarity is, and what can happen if that's not the case. I think Ripple's been one of the ones that's kind of spearheaded in the space with that lawsuit, and eventually like winning it. But more so, the impact that that's had on the wider industry is that it's kind of clarified a lot of things. It has clarified lots of things beyond just like XRP as a currency or like token, and that's been really, really profound for the wider industry.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I've always believed that a good part of why they're doing this is for the, as a side benefit for the clarity of the wider industry, not just Ripple and their own token. 100%. Um, and Tom, you mentioned something about you thought that in order for crypto companies to get clarity, then regulation needs to happen. It's something that I totally believe in. Um, but more recently, I've been thinking about the very beginning of crypto and what it meant to start 2008 crypto maximalism. It's like, fuck the police, fuck the banks, we're getting it ourselves, right? And now you see like crypto bros on Twitter tweeting about like BlackRock bought another like 2 billion in Bitcoin and stuff. And part of me just thinks whether this is just the way that Silicon Valley likes to adopt, expand and extinguish, but applied to the crypto industry itself, right? You bring it into the mainstream um, framework. You bring it into the financial framework that we have. You incorporate it into it. You promote it, and then eventually it becomes part of this system. So therefore, I guess the benefit that you would have gained with unstoppable money becomes very much stoppable through the legal framework, which is a bit of a weird thing to kind of try to balance out.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that sort of early libertarian view, in my opinion, is long gone. You know, when
Mm,
we're not going to have, we're not going to see that sort of vision come to fruition, whether you agree with that or not. I think what we're seeing now is like the digital assets and crypto being legitimized and set up for mainstream adoption. I think you've also got to remember that most majority of people, are not libertarians. What they care about is convenience and getting on with their daily
sure.
lives, and they want to be able to do that in a safe environment. So if something goes wrong, what's the recourse? What's the framework that's going to protect me? And I think regulation is there ultimately to protect the consumer, although that's what the premise of regulation is.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I agree. I think that that vision's kind of definitely moved to the wayside because I don't think there's any other way that this could have happened. We don't live in this idealistic bubble where, as nice as it is, I just think it's once you look at it, in hindsight, yeah, it's not possible because you even have things like, right, you still got things like Monero, which is and will remain unregulated, which is exactly why a lot of the big cryptocurrency exchanges, they just stopped listing it. It's been delisted from Binance. It's been delisted from a few other exchanges as well, which means, what is the benefit of an unstoppable, anonymous private coin if you can't buy it and you can't send it and you can't exchange it?
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure it will continue to function, and it will be used by people on the fringes. But I would imagine that it will not be taken up by the mainstream because of regulation.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just going to ask both of you one more thing regarding the current state of the US regulatory framework and everything, and then we can move on from there. Are you both tired of winning? Because I sure shit I am. Man, look, I'm just gonna be honest. I was like for Trump when he came in because he came in with some really good ideas regarding the market, free markets and all that. I supported all that, even his ideas of tariffs. I'm like, I listened to a 3-hour conversation on tariffs from him and Joe Rogan. It was super in depth. I'm like, I really want to get like his really like real understanding of this. I'm like, maybe it's not that bad. Car manufacturers selling cars in the US and making them in the US as opposed to China. It's good for the business, good for America. And then, oh my fucking God, I wake up every morning, I see the markets tank. Come to 2 p.m., which is about the time now, US markets open. I'm just going to check my phone now to see if they've already gone down. They have not today. But almost on US market open, crypto market just tanks day in, day out for the last 2.5 months. And it's really weird to reconcile the fact that we have all this regulatory clarity and the president's bullish as hell, leaving aside the meme coin, Trump meme coin and Melania meme coin. But then on the other side, the markets are taking a beating incessantly. So what do you guys think about? What do you guys make of the current situation? Is it a good? Are tariffs good? Are they bad? Is it too early to tell? I don't know.
I mean, I think we can't deny the economic situation, which is really what's driving the prices and what's driving the markets. Uh, I'm not an economist, so I can't, I guess, break down the actual impact of tariffs and like how it works. I mean, I think there's been a lot of retaliatory tariffs from other countries as well. So it's a bit of like a tariff war or some situation that's effectively being created because of some of those policies and some of the executive orders. From from like a broad brush market perspective, it's just, I think, the uncertainty of what might happen, or what the long term impact of that is going to be, which is what's really driving that negative sentiment in the space. I mean, if you look at like any blue chip stock, like it's going to take a lot of beating. So it's not necessarily because the asset isn't performing, or anything specific about the actual underlying like company, or even in crypto, like the actual asset, but it's more just about ju- just a general economical confidence. I think as much as Bitcoin supporters would like to, I think that Bitcoin is an asset that's completely separate to like US. It is tied very much to that, and we see the impact of that day in day out.
Yeah, we see. I'm seeing the market psychology at play, and it's very clear, right? It's very clear that on most days, people are hedging their bets, closing their positions if those are marginated positions, just ahead of the U.S. market, because everyone's got like, what if he wakes up with one more tariff today? What if he drops another one on us?
It's that
I just don't want.
uncertainty. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like that's shaken a lot of the confidence of an otherwise very bullish market and very bullish start of 2025. I don't think it's a long term thing personally, but yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait and see how it all plays out. I think technology trumps over the price.
That's actually an interesting point. Like it kind of highlights how important certainty and sort of underlying stability is to any amount of clarity that you might have in like anything. Because if there's uncertainty, if there's instability to do with what might happen tomorrow, if that's what people are asking, no amount of clarity or support for like crypto, for example, would like make the markets happy, because there's that underlying fear that's always there, and that, I mean, fear wins. The fear is the most primal instinct, and that will always win.
Yeah, for sure. Fear and greed, and this is one of the big reason why a lot of people are part of this industry. For the speculation, for the gains, a lot of them are hunting for the next gem or whatever. And well, it's got its benefits, it's got its perks, because the industry does get exposed to a wide number of people, and then some of those are getting a bit more curious and starting to look into the underlying technologies, the startups, the people that make it happen. Um, but then it also means that at least to some extent, this has been, I wouldn't call it a seasonal industry or a seasonal business model, but you definitely get more business during bull markets. You get less business during bear markets. So you really got to adapt your strategy. I feel you really have to count in your business model for that. If you operate on commission fees like exchanges do, you're going to
Mm.
have a hard time when the bear market comes 100% of the time.
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah. There's definitely a sentiment that exchanges win either way, but I think ultimately, yeah, there's a huge impact on volumes. Yeah, definitely. I mean, even on dexes, we see. I think that Uniswap started charging for trades through the UI. I think that was a few years ago.
Hmm.
But even that's driven by the on-chain volume, and you see that obviously go down during uh, bear markets.
Yeah, I would actually really be interested to see any numbers regarding layoffs from previous bear market. I mean, we know what happened. We know
Mm.
because last cycle there were a lot of companies that simply did not have a sustainable business model, offering like huge APYs and staking rewards that were just not sustainable once the market stopped pumping. And you'd be curious to see if there were other companies that survived, and what are some of the challenges that they had to go through in order to make it. What were you guys incorporated during the last bear market?
Yes, we actually incorporated in 21.
Okay,
Uh,
cool.
yeah, I think I'm not sure if that was bear or bull market, but
But I think 2021 you were still bull. I think you were like around maybe around peak bull if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like an age ago now.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, for sure. So do you guys want to get a little bit into the product? Because I'm really curious about why we've built Palisade, what it stands for, and what are some of the technologies that you used. Do you want to start with like an overview of the product and your vision?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's do it. So we'll both have a stab at this, Manthan, shall we?
yeah.
So as I said, like Manthan and I, we met a number of years ago at Ripple. We spent around 5-6 years there building out their payment stack. And we saw, Ripple Net, the payments network, go from, low millions to billions in daily and weekly volume. Um, One of the things that we kept hearing at Ripple was that, as these payment companies and these banks move into the world of digital assets and start using digital assets as a way to move money across borders, one of the things they really need is wallet infrastructure,
Mm-hmm.
and other functions and utilities on top of the wallet to sort of help them with their operations. So it's not just about the payment rails; it's about the security of those operations too.
Right.
There was really only one or two sort of players in the space at the time offering private key management and fit for enterprise. And so we left in 2021, started Palisade really to provide payments companies and banks with wallet infrastructure fit for payment services. And we've been doing that ever since. I think the way that we often describe Palisade, it's as a full spectrum digital asset custody wallet infrastructure and wallet infrastructure firm, providing everything from secure private key management, provisioning of wallets, all the way up to sort of tokenization of stablecoins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the key question that we're trying to answer is, what if you had a set of tools available to you for managing keys, managing governance, managing DeFi or the connectivity to like other platforms, and these were delivered in a composable way that you could use them to build anything. So you could use them to build a stablecoin uh, issuance flow. You could use it to build a market making bot or a platform that can effectively execute trades on chain. You can use it to build uh, robust asset management for like managing treasury for yourself and for your customers. So Palisade is built on these like pillars that effectively allow you to uh, sort of like combine different ways of custodying assets, different ways of governance, different ways of interacting with on-chain contracts or like other things, in order to build solutions for lots of different use cases. So today in Palisade, what that means is we support different custody models from self-custodial using MPC and shared custodial using MPC, where if you're a client, you can use MPC to not only hold your assets, you can share some of that with your clients, give them some of the shards. You can design wallets for your like clients and customers and retail wallets using our technology. To being able to use Palisade's HSMs to securely store assets with us under the regulated entity. And all of this is works with our governance platform, and it works with our execution platform, which effectively allow you to then use this to do things like issuance. So, for example,
Mm-hmm.
you could have the Palisade HSMs hold the issuance keys, and you can issue assets using them into a MPC held treasury wallet, which is like held by your LPs, by your partners, and in combining this, you are effectively getting safety from best of both worlds, where you're getting a regulated issuance flow using HSMs, and you're getting the MPC's kind of ability to like manage risk, and being able to have this uh, signature-based governance system in order to manage this like vast pool of assets that you're sort of holding.
Got you. Thank you. Do you also offer wallet services as well, or is it just the infrastructure layer that you're focusing on?
We do.
End user wallet services.
Yeah, we do. So we're not a retail-facing company. It is infrastructure, but we have a very specific product for retail wallets. So if you're a payments company, for example, I always use this one because it's quite an easy one to help illustrate the different types of products we offer. If you're a payments company, you likely have end users, and
Mm-hmm.
we offer a very specific type of wallet for those end users. Those wallets are secured with a passkey. Um, some companies are calling those like embedded wallets. For example, you log into the payments company's user interface and you get provisioned an address by default, and then that wallet is protected by a passkey or a password or something like that. Um, but yes, the full spectrum of sort of like wallet infrastructure and custody services that we offer, rather than being super dogmatic about a specific technology or type of wallet. we understand there's not a one size fits all, and every company that comes to us tends to have similar but not identical requirements.
Got you. Yeah, I assume there's some requirements that most companies tend to have, and then you just you adjust as and when needed. So you mentioned that at the time when you first incorporated Palisade, there was just another solution that was offering this infrastructure service for enterprise level. Um, what does Palisade do different from that provider and other infrastructure providers? If there's more now, I'm assuming that this is a growing industry.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll have a step at this first. I think one thing that part of our sort of longer term strategy is that if you're building in Web3, you come to Palisade and you don't need to go anywhere else. If we look at a lot of our competitors today, and what they've done very well is they've established partnerships with other infrastructure providers. So if you need a wallet, you go to one company, but if you need to tokenize an asset, you go to another company. And then if you need DeFi, you go to another company. Palisade's longer term vision is that we become like this all in one solution with secure wallet infrastructure at the core.
Got you. Okay. And the solution, is that available right now, or you're mostly focusing on building the wallet infrastructure first?
We've spent the last 2 years building the wallet infrastructure piece, and now we're building other components. Today, if you're looking to tokenize something like a stablecoin, Palisade's got you. If you need wallet infrastructure, Palisade's got you. And now we're starting to build out other features as well for DeFi and other aspects of Web3.
Cool, cool. All right, talk me through your tech stack. I want to like, if is any of you a technical founder? I didn't ask.
Both of us,
We're,
actually.
we're both technical founders, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fun. This is gonna be fun then. All right. Okay. Then walk me through the decision making process of your technical stack, both from when it comes to on chain infrastructure, but also off chain traditional development. What's powering up your back? Anything that's not sensitive, right? That you're happy to talk about. That's what's powering up your back end, your front end. What's your like JavaScript framework? What are you using? Do you use AWS infra? All that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so Tom and I have both worked through companies that have gone through SOC 2 and like ISO and a lot of different certifications, including pen tests and things like that. So when we built the first cut of Palisade or the first version, it had the foundations there that it was secure. It was eventually we went through an audit and we made sure that it had the right foundations in place. And that's really the core focus for anything that we do, is that we want to make sure that like the default thing that you get for anything that we deliver is certainty, security, and integrity. So what that means is for our the way our stack is laid out, it kind of reflects that. Today we in terms of the stack, everything that we use is on Amazon, and we're just going towards multi-cloud to add that additional level of resiliency. We're deployed across two UK and France regions. Uh, France is specifically important, obviously, because we're regulated there. Data protection laws and things like that require us to keep the data there. And UK is a very helpful secondary kind of failover, but also have a sort of geolocated services there, so we can provide better service. Um, the actual product suite and how it interacts with the actual stack. So, for example, we have an app, mobile app that allows you to hold shards on Palisade. And in addition to the app, we have what we call the Cloud Sign. So Cloud Sign is a co-signing service that our clients can run on their own premises that effectively connects to like Palisade Central. And this effectively means that Palisade, while we have a SaaS platform, which is a platform deployed across multiple regions with backup DR deployed across different regions, we also have Palisade servers deployed on client infrastructure, which could be in like any of the regions across the world. So, for example, clients can hold shards on their phones, and obviously the phones can be can be traveling, or it can be in Switzerland or
Right.
anywhere. Same for the co-signing service. That could be in any of the could be in any of the regions. What's actually more important for us is, while we do provide high-speed signing, so our signing latency is very, very low, and that's kind of one of our key focuses, is that if Palisade gets a request to sign a transaction, and if actually we have the app and the co-signers coordinating signatures, it's important to keep that latency extremely low, because the use case of that can be wide ranging, from market making to sort of being able to just move assets, like $100 billion worth of assets, because everything that goes around that can take some time as well. So I'm not sure if that answers the question, or if you want me to lay down like what the exact...
Some of it, yeah, some of it, but partly does, yeah.
I mean, we quite heavily use GraphQL. gRPC is our favorite choice for like internal communication.
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, service mesh is quite critical to our use case, to making it to effectively enabling multi-cloud. And the way we see infrastructure is that, I mean, at the Palisade, like, we use Kubernetes that effectively
Right.
manages our deployment infrastructure, and it's quite important for us that the stack that we have is not tied to a cloud provider like Amazon, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Despite the fact that we actually use Nitro a lot, like in our stack, like the Amazon Nitro, which is a secure enclave service. We are still multi-cloud, and we still sort of use technologies that allow us to sort of port that over to different cloud providers.
Yeah, I would just add a few more things to that. I think, like, security is at the core of what we do, and so we have hundreds of processes built into the way we build the software, we deploy the software, who gets to audit the code, approve code, push to main, etc., etc. So we actually try to build as much as we can in-house to remove the number of dependencies. We've seen recently, dependencies are one attack vector that you need to be aware of, dependency injections. And so we try to remove those as much as possible. Our user interface is built with HTML, JavaScript. And I think JavaScript presents many problems when it comes to security and attack vectors. So we try to write as much pure JavaScript as possible. And I think that's all the way from the front end to the back end. It's like we build as much as we can, import as little as possible.
That makes sense. So you don't rely on TypeScript at all on the front end or back end?
No, we do use TypeScript. Yeah. So I tend to use those interchangeably when I talk about front end scripting. But yeah, we do absolutely use TypeScript. It's essential for what we're building.
Yeah, there's no TypeScript on the back end, but there is we use the core thing that we do is we have lots of so internally we have like lots of tools that constantly monitor for like threats. We like anything that we use, like as Tom was talking about in the supply chain attacks, is like very, very important to us. So we make sure that we have alerting systems in place, and we have internal operations center that we use to like monitor for ongoing threats. And we're part of industry groups that effectively allow us to share intelligence on different kind of attack vectors. But I think, like, I mean, I can talk a lot on that front, but and I've talked about it in one of my blog posts, but what's really important about security is actually that you can't just take an approach from kind of one angle and kind of like say that that's secure and then move on to next. And then it's about a holistic view on something. And you have to attack it effectively, not from all angles, but you have to attack it really from all angles. And you have to incrementally sort of add layers like an onion. Because if you take an approach where for example, you use the strongest, like, SSL certs, but you have no way of like rate limiting, or you have no way of making sure that, like, if you got DDoS, you've got a strategy there. it doesn't matter, right? Because
Sure.
TLS is not. So that's quite a simple example, but there's yeah. So I think from a platform perspective, I think that's really where we spend 90% of our time, trying to just make sure that we're on top of the threats, and also make sure that our architecture is still relevant, and we're sort of asking hard questions like, well, we we invested X amount of days in this particular thing. Is this still relevant? And like, if this is vulnerable, um, we need to get rid of it, or we need to find a solution. And that's, I think, really quite hard to balance.
Yeah, and security isn't just about like the infrastructure, right? It's everything. It's like end to end. It's not just about the private key, or are your servers secure? Are you running code in a confidential compute environment or in a private network? It's everything, all the way from that to the user experience and how that end user observes and signs transactions. And we saw this in the Bybit hack, right? Essentially,
Mm-hmm.
blind signing was, if there was blind signing wasn't there, they could have prevented this, right? If there was more transparency and a
Mm.
better way to observe what they were signing, some of that we've been able to prevent that. And so, the designers on the team are thinking about security as much as the back end engineers. Sorry.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's very good. I was just about to bring up this example. We had a guest a couple of episodes ago, and he's an investor, a professor, and an investor in new technologies and cryptocurrency. And he's recently experienced like a really unique case of social engineering, right? And that's when you really got to think, like you said, Manthan, like holistically, because your stack tech might be like super robust, but if there is some degree of a vector of attack from social engineering, that kind of also needs to be addressed in the same manner. The attack was, I don't remember the wallet's name. I don't want to say the name because I don't remember it out the top of my head, but I can give you the name afterwards. It's really interesting. So they were asked as investors to prove their funds for a proof of funds wallet. So they were asked to transfer a certain amount of crypto onto this wallet. Initially, the hackers, or rather the scammers, asked for $1.2 million. They were a little bit concerned with the amount, so they've only transferred, I think it was about 200 or $400,000, and then they've shared the proof of funds with the scammers, and then the scammers asked them before they do anything, before they perform any transaction or anything like that, they wanted them, the investors, to send a small amount of crypto to make sure that you're sending to the correct address and whatnot, right? Good practice in general. You want to be doing that. But the way they went about it is they presented the investors with a QR code. And when you scan the QR code, there were a couple of things that went wrong here to like the full breakdown of the UI, right? When you scan the QR code, you get a wallet address, but there are some wallets that also let you embed an amount, right, in that QR code. So it also takes the amount that the scammer or the one that requests the funds puts on that code. Um, that would have been fine. It's still, I think, a bit weird to be including the amount in a QR code when you make a request, but that would have been fine if the UI worked the way it should have. Now, instead of it doing the conversion between whatever token they were sending to USD, um, it didn't work properly. So it showed as, let's say, 50 or 10 Bitcoin or whatever equal 1 USD instead of the amount. So that could have been a failure from an Oracle or something like that, not being able to fetch the price, not being able to fetch the conversion. And then underneath that, there was a conversion rate, I think, in USDT, but instead of them using the comma, they use the full stop. So instead of you thinking that is, however much it would have been, $200,000, dollars or whatever, it read as if it's $2, which would have been the test amount that they wanted to send. So because of that, they approved the transaction and they sent all this money to the scammers.
Well, I mean, I think that's we saw something similar to that in the Bybit attack. But in the Bybit's case, it was actually manipulated and like effectively replaced, right? Um, I mean, there's like so many attacks. There's dust attacks where, like, you might think, okay, like if I'm gonna send money to this OTC broker, and I'll have them send some, like, 1 cent or something to me, and I'll copy their address from on chain. But you have the attackers kind of like, coming on top of that, and then you effectively copy the wrong address, and then when you actually send the amount, you're sending the amount to the attacker instead. The tokens is actually like a minefield, because if you, like, at least on EVM chains, tokens are smart contracts. So
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you receive a token and you add it to your, like, list of assets they want to work with, but if that token has, or if that token is a malicious contract, it can just take the permission to, like, spend your, like, other assets, or and I think that's why, like, our core philosophy is that we want to serve high volume use cases, which is the place where all of this is, like there are all kinds of attacks that can happen in that case, especially with customers that we work with that deposit into AMMs and that we use a DEX. And there are lots of different ways to steal funds, beyond just being able to, sort of trick someone into sending the wrong amount, I think. But even at that fundamental level, it's very important to get the UX right and get the UI right, all the way to having additional safeguards in place on the back end to tell the user, hey, is this really what you intend to do? Like, are you sure that you're going to send this? And instead of repeating the information, the user should be presented with something else that's a slightly different view on that. So rather than saying you're about to send like $2 worth of Bitcoin, it's maybe a different take would be, this is the execution result, like this is the execution path that this transaction is going to take. Are you sure? Because there's also a way that you can kind of where the users, like, if you present too much information to the end user, they just check out.
for
and
sure.
and it's just like, oh yeah, I've already seen that, okay, fine, I'll just approve it, it's fine, doesn't matter. Or, like, a lot of times it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to approve it because, like, Joe on the team approved it, so I'm just the second approver. So so it's really about thinking critically, well, how do we make the platform so that users are in control. So throughout our platform, we embody the principles of least privilege, which means that customers have to specify everything that they want to do. It's a little pain. So some customers do say, well, it's quite verbose. We have to like have the policies in kind of place for these actions we want to do. But you're doing a complex action. Like, you're depositing, you're zapping into an LP pool that's gonna go through lots of different, like, contracts.
Hmm.
You need to be conscious of that, and just the practice that the customer has to think through what the policy will be for that action, effectively means that they are kind of informed, and they will and they'll question, like, is this the right way that we should be doing this? Because this is exposing us to a lot of risks here.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. I think just to add one more bit to that. I think we have a ton of clients who they onboard with Palisade. They're setting up their operations. They start building out their policies for different assets and wallets, and it's really the first time they've thought about security in any sense at all. And so there's definitely like a level of education, I think, with a lot of our clients on how to set up, what the best practices are, etc. But we're definitely seeing more and more that the human is the weakest link in the chain.
For
Uh,
sure. For
and as
sure.
the infrastructure and the technology advances, the private key stays secure. It's very difficult to compromise that. It's becoming more and more difficult. But the humans are the weakest link,
Yeah.
and it's them that are being compromised.
Yeah, I've actually just found the name for that wallet. It's called the Atomic Wallet, and I've also
Ah,
found the link that the guy sent me over. So this is, if you guys might find it interesting. He's documented everything about that scam, the way it works, the way it, like, the numbers don't properly update on the wallet, and the way they got taken advantage of. It's effectively a long con. It's people establishing trust over a long period of time, sometimes even a couple of months, pretending to be influential people or important people in the crypto space, and then eventually hitting them with this exploit. So they had to be very specific about them depositing money in the Atomic wallet rather than other wallets that don't have that UI jank, right?
Yeah,
Mm.
and like, let's be clear, like this isn't anything new. This
Yeah.
has been happening for decades before Web3, especially that type of scam there, where you're in it for the long game, and you're building up trust with the person that you're attacking, essentially.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it happens across industries. It happens outside of business. Just think of the Tinder swindler, if you guys ever seen that
Oh yeah,
one, right? Like the guy pretending to be a multimillionaire, just riding
insane.
in private jets. Crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I
Yeah,
wonder how many years he kept balling for before he eventually got caught out. I think it was quite a while.
yeah, yeah. It
yeah.
was.
Wasn't there another one where there was a woman that was posing to be the part of the elite and was sort of she was just kind of part of the high society and just based on impression and people just like believed her and
Yeah,
that wasn't like really the case, but it was just yeah.
Yeah,
yeah. It's crazy. Like I think some guy also said it. Like you put on a suit and half the people will believe you. You know, you put on a police suit, they'll believe you're a police officer. That you put on a janitor suit and half of them you believe you're just the janitor at the company, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think
Fraudsters.
like that. I mean, I think like the problems are like, old, but money is now moving at light speed. So,
Yeah,
like the impact of that is massive.
yeah.
For
That's
sure.
exactly it. And I think for a lot of people, the technology and these new concepts of like crypto, stable coins, are overwhelming enough. And sort of like that lack of knowledge makes you very susceptible. I think um, bit of an easier job for the fraudsters.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there will be people willing to take advantage of blind spots in any new technology. So it's not criticizing. Oh, right. Well, hacks happen in crypto. Yeah, they happen everywhere. They happen. There's the Nigerian prince email scam is still ongoing to this day. Believe it or not, I remember receiving these emails as far back as I don't know 2008 or something. They're still going out, which means that there is probably still a very small amount of people, it's probably minuscule, but not zero, that fall for this scam, which is
Yeah,
kind of frightening to believe.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I meant to say because you guys said you're using TypeScript, so there's a couple of really cool things that I've just discovered regarding TypeScript recently. I wanted to share them with you. Number one is you guys aware that TypeScript is being rewritten entirely in Go, which I was really interesting.
Oh,
that is
that's interesting.
interesting. I
Okay.
did not know that. We enjoy Go in at Palisade. We have a number of services that are written in Go. That's some cool information. I need to go away and do a bit of reading on that.
Yeah.
10x improvement gains, so 10x compile time gains and everything, so it should be a lot smoother. The IDE should be able to fill in the context and everything almost immediately. It's fantastic. I'm looking forward to see it, though it won't be up until version 7, which is probably going to be 2026, 2027, or something like that. uh, but they're working on it. It's a massive project and it's fantastic. Before this, I had no idea that TypeScript is written in TypeScript, and I swear to you, I spent probably like an hour and a half trying to compute in my brain
Oh yeah.
how does that work.
Yeah. I mean, I was actually looking at the Go's repository, like Golang's repository on the GitHub, the source code repository, and like 90% of the code is written in Go, 99% actually,
Yeah,
and
that's weird. That's some weird like recursion black magic. How'd you make that happen?
it's I think there's I've read about this like in my compilers class at uni, like there's a cutoff point, like so when you create a new language, it's initially like you're using like very low level languages to like bring that into fruition, like C++, but there's a cutoff point, maybe it's like a Turing once it's Turing complete or something like that, but once it gets to that point you can then use it to write it itself. So then you go and replace all the C++
Ah,
stuff, and then as you add new like functionality and new like versions, you then update it and then you use those new paradigms in your subsequent like releases. And yeah, it's super
right. So you compile it in C or whatever assembly. Well, probably not assembly, but you compile it in C and then you recompile it again and then again and then
yeah.
again.
And then you kind of get to a point where you've got a compiler that's sort of stable in Go, like for example Go compiler is kind of stable, and then you can write basically Golang inside Go using Go's compiler, and it's Yeah, but it's weird recursion. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating though. That's really cool. I would like just love to look at that process and get into that. And the other thing that I meant to mention, and this is this video I came across on YouTube. There is this guy that spent 2 years making Doom run on TypeScript types, exclusively in TypeScript types, nothing else, just pure TypeScript types, and obviously custom TypeScript types that is written. It's such a it was such a nightmare. The project, the guy describes that if you look at all of the types that TypeScript has out of the box available for you to create and play around with, and then you look at all of the types that he had to create in order to get Doom to compile in TypeScript types, it's equivalent to the difference between relatively how large Jupiter is compared to the sun or something like that.
Wow. Wow.
It's insane. It's
That's
an insane
incredible.
project. I love this kind of stuff where it's just, can I do it? You're not wondering whether you should, but just whether you can.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like that guy who built the world's smallest game. It's like it's in kilobyte, or it's like it's in bytes or something. I think where you can
Wow.
play Snake basically, and like it just keeps shrinking. I think I saw a Reddit post about him saying that he managed to save like 100 bytes or something, even more by I don't know doing something. And it's like why? Because you can.
Yeah, that's crazy. And a lot of these things comes out of like a real necessity back in the day. Like if you there's another fascinating example with Quake, one of the original Quake games. They had to determine exactly the trajectory of a bullet. So there would have been a more complicated way of going about it, which by the time we would have computed that, the map and the position and everything would have changed. So they went for a God, I don't remember. There was that reference, that like famous reference in the code that was a reverse, a fast reverse square root or something like that along these lines, um, and it literally had like the next line in the code was a comment saying "What the fuck?" Probably another developer that just looked at that. What are you doing? They were referencing a point in memory instead of a number. It was all sorts of weird, but it's crazy to see how you can like hack what's possible to do with a language with a compiler to save on speed and efficiency.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
like the we're a bit almost cursed with the amount of resources we have now to develop anything, because there's just too
Yeah,
much. Like compute is money basically, and if you're like building something, you can just, I mean, like even a normal like MacBook, for example, like I have an M1 MacBook, and it's like magnitude more powerful than my first computer, which was a Pentium 3, 128 megs of like RAM, and I think even like look at before that, when these games came out, it was very restricted hardware, which led to some really creative thinking and creative solutions. I think now with the too much compute power, oh yeah, if it runs slow, just add more cores, bro. Like it's fine.
exactly.
It's not a good like way, because it effectively like it's a thief of critical thinking, and it's a I mean, especially now with AI as well, with like cursor, and uh, it's great to go from 0 to 60, because or 0 to 10 even, like where you can get something working very very quickly. But you really need the skills to critically think about the solution, and it's like, well, whether this is the right kind of thing, is it even the right problem I'm solving? Maybe the problem isn't to do with my size of my textures. It's to do with how the quickly I can load it from memory, or how quickly I can uncompress them. Maybe I should have them in some kind of format. Like this is why the on Xbox, the uh, games that were on the disc were so big, because they had the same textures effectively on like different parts of the disc. So
Oh wow.
when you load the game, because it was like a spinning hard drive, it meant that it gets more chances to load textures than having to do a full circle, and that impacts on in sort of gameplay. And yeah, it's fascinating. But I think, yeah, I mean, it's crazy that those were the solutions at that time. Now with SSDs, you don't even have to think about it. You just put the game. The SSD is going to be like, I don't know, like something insane speed, and yeah, you never have to think about any of the constraints other than your idea or the limits to which you can push your application.
Yeah, but that does create some shortcuts, which I guess depending on the industry, they're not best practice, and we've seen that happen recently in gaming. We've seen DLSS and gaming companies
Mm.
often over reliance on DLSS and frame
Oh yeah.
generation to the point where games are unoptimized. They get sent out the door as quickly as possible. Half of them they don't even run at 60 frames per second without DLSS, right?
Mm.
And that's a big problem because, like you were saying, it stops people from actually thinking and coming up with creative solutions. Instead of thinking about, oh, the form of my mesh and how many polygons it's got, and making sure that the light only displays there, everything is just thrown at a high level in Unity or whatever, and then it's slapped AI and DLSS frame generation on top of it. It runs fine, but if you take that away, there's games that barely run on like last generation graphics cards, like 4090. Like trying to run some games at 4090, like The Last of Us 2 was a recent example. There's probably a couple of others too. I was just shocked at the performance.
Yeah, I think the way I can talk all day about optimization and games because I think this is why games have been actually going down in quality, because like if you look at the games now versus like games back in, like, even I would say 15 years ago, there was way more emphasis on like the experience and about pushing the boundaries of the hardware and like making software really lean and kind of I think like there's no game optimization anymore. It's just like almost like an uncut version from like a developer's machine to a computer, and you just hope that it's going to play well with your like, graphics card, whatever that is. If you're on AMD, you might have to pay more, but
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of reliance on just, oh yeah, like I think the blame has kind of shifted to the consumer. It's like if it doesn't work, it's your fault. It's like, well, like the game should be optimized, and if like that meme from Iron Man, which is if like those devs can do it in a cave with like very like primitive tools.
Yeah,
um I think and I think like, I mean, in like you have that, you have some of those constraints in crypto, like if you look at on-chain execution, like, which is kind of slow on sort of Ethereum. You see L2s kind of coming in and trying to like innovate by doing rollups and using zk proofs. And if you look at like MPC tech, for example, like there are a lot of bottlenecks at a CPU level with what you can do with cryptography. And there are some sort of like creative solutions, like DKLS23 is quite an interesting one, where they're using pipelining to kind of solve the problem of just like very noisy, very heavy protocol that's exchanging zk proofs constantly. But I think you really only get like innovation when you have constraints. And if
for
you're
sure.
just like, if you're completely unconstrained, you're very much focused on the limits of the brain and the solution that you can push, like in terms of like the horizontal rather than vertical.
No, that's a very good point, and I always think about DLSS as some kind of paradigm shift. Run instead of getting 30 frames, now you get 300 frames, but there is still a plateau there. You cannot keep getting that, right. Like we've got DLSS 4 on a fifth generation now on NVIDIA cards, which add 3 fake frames or AI
Oh yeah.
frames to every real frame. Now, let's say there's going to be another one that adds 6. At which point does the image get diluted and broken enough that this is no longer scalable? Is it 10 frames? For every real frame, it won't scale infinitely. So there will be a point where you can't just rely on DLSS and frame generation alone.
Yeah, it's a point that Jensen says, I have enough yachts.
Yeah,
um,
fair enough. Yeah, guy's a fucking rock star.
I mean, I think wasn't there like a technical like analysis of his crocodile jacket, which was someone said that correlates to like Nvidia stock price and the quality of the GPUs.
I did
um,
see something like that. That was very good.
but I think you're right. I think it is about it is like the fake frames is a good example. Like that's kind of being used as a way to say like, oh, like the new version of GPUs have like 4x the performance or 2x. Is it really with the diluted frames? Like if you discount that, like I think someone said it was only 10% better than the 5090 was only 10% better in like real terms compared to 4090.
Yeah.
And like it's really just 4090 under the hood with the fake frame insertion. Yeah, I don't know. I think yeah, I think with the lack of competition, I think this is kind of why we're here at this stage.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely, guys. I had a lot of fun, really good conversation. Do you guys have anything that you want to add? Any releases that you want to tease, or anything at all regarding Palisade?
Um, I think the key thing I would add is that we're working on a lot of different key management protocols, and I think so. Our goal is that we want to make it Palisade as the one-stop shop for everything that you will need to secure assets in crypto, which is not limited to how we do it today, which is MPC and HSM. Um, the vision for Palisade is that the MPC protocol, the underlying key management algorithm, the um, like the actual HSMs, we want to abstract all of that away to make it easy for customers to access their assets. Um, in real terms, what it means is that if you're using Palisade today, and if there was a better way to do MPC using a new algorithm, you don't have to worry about that from a customer standpoint. Palisade actually enables that. So we're working on something very exciting in that area. Um, Alongside that, we're also working very exciting in. We're also working on some exciting upgrades to the way we do our HSMs and to facilitate some of the newer regulator requirements. For example, Central Bank of Bahrain have a requirement for clients to hold a certain percentage of the customer's assets in cold storage. So we're working on a few things that support that. But our core vision has been that this platform is flexible, it's composable, and it allows you to cater or to design for a variety of use cases. And we're effectively, by moving ahead of regulation, we're effectively catering for that.
Yeah, I think the final thing that I would say is like if you're looking to build in Web3, you're moving from Web2 to Web3, you're building something cool, you need to be building on Palisade. We'll get you to market very, very quickly, very, very securely, with everything from your wallet infrastructure all the way to tokenization and beyond.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, guys. It's been a great conversation. I would love to have you both on us sometime in the future, and I wish you all the best.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you,
Cheers, man.
Andre. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
See ya. Bye bye.
Bye.